What we're about to read comes late in the Passion narratives, and so it's a bit odd to read, perhaps seemingly at the start of Advent, but alas, it speaks to the imaginative nature that people have about what it is that comes next. So, here now the words from Mark from the 13th chapter. But in those days, after that suffering, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will be falling from heaven, and the powers in the heavens will be shaken. Then they will see the Son of Man coming in clouds with great power and glory. Then he will send out the angels and gather his elect from the four winds and from the ends of the earth to the ends of heaven. The words of the gospel continue on with the lesson of the fig tree. From the fig tree, learn its lesson. As soon as its branches become tender and puts forth its leaves, you must know that summer is near. So also, when you see things taking place, you know that he is near, at the very gates. Truly, I tell you, this generation will not pass away until all these things have taken place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not. But about that day or hour, no one knows, neither the angels in heaven nor the Son, but only the Father. Be aware, keep alert, for you do not know when the time will come. It is like a man going on a journey, when he leaves his home and puts his slaves in charge, each with his work, and commands the doorkeeper to be on the watch. Therefore keep watch, for you do not know the master of the house, or when he will come, in the evening, or at midnight, or at cockcrow, or at dawn, or else he may find you asleep when he comes suddenly. And what I say to you is this: keep awake. May God add her wisdom to our understanding as we think about what it is this holy story invites us to this day. Amen and amen. Most mornings I leash up our dachshunds and head to the woods not far from our house to hike. It started because I just needed to get out of the house last March when all the normal patterns of life came to a halt. By April, the hike had become a spiritual discipline. It had become a spiritual practice for letting myself grow comfortable with being lost. I figured if I could come to peace with literally being lost most mornings, maybe I could come to terms with that gnawing feeling of also being spiritually and emotionally lost too. By May, that morning hike was a source of inspiration. Each day, as the forest came alive with the blooms of different grasses and flowers and trees, I had never realized there were micro seasons. I mean, of course there are, but I never paid attention to how much changes in a forest each and every day. June, July, and August, they too brought more discoveries and more questions, and more trying to be okay with being lost, and more marveling at creation, more prayers, more trying to feel grounded. In late September, I was getting ready for the morning hike, but the dachshunds were clear that they were not about to join. We're talking they went to their beds and climbed under the blanket, literally. And I thought, yep, I totally get that feeling, and contemplated for a good long while doing just the same. Instead, though, I made my way to the woods. That morning, without the dachshunds to pay attention to, my mind wandered down the litany, the heaviness of the world that was on my mind. The impact of COVID, the unfolding political chaos, the pain of being in a culture where division is so clear, the fear for my sister and my mom who work in hospitals, the worry for a friend awaiting deportation to a country she's never known, and sorrow for churches I was working with who had idolized their buildings and forgotten their mission. I was clumping through the pines up on the bluff line in Decorah, lost in half thought and half prayer, thinking about all of this and thinking, how much longer can I do this? How much longer is all of this going to last? How much longer is it going to just feel awful? And why? Why, I thought, why in the world are we not through all of this? All of this was running through my mind when a Celtic tune danced its few surprising bars in my ear. A woman's voice began with the lyrics, "My soul cries out with a joyful shout that the God of my heart is great, and my spirit sings of the wondrous things that you bring to the ones who wait." And y'all, my eyes rolled so far back in my head, I nearly knocked myself out at that last word. Wait. The vocalist continued, though. Apparently, iTunes is completely unaffected by my own internal monologue and annoyance. And so she sang on. "You fixed your sight on the servant's plight, and my weakness you did not spurn. So from east to west shall my name be blessed. Could the world be about to turn?" The song danced on, but I couldn't even walk. The lyrics felt heavy. That question, too, I slumped under its weight, onto the bedding of the pine needles, under the trees, as the Magnificat sang on. Though the nations rage from age to age, we remember who holds us fast. God's mercy must deliver us from the conqueror's crushing grasp. The saving word that our forebears heard is the promise which holds us bound, till the spear and the rod crushed by God, who is turning the whole world round. My heart shall sing in the day you bring, let the fires of your justice burn. Wipe away all tears, for the dawn draws near, and the world is about to turn. I listened and listened and listened. That September day to the Magnificat, the canticle of turning this particular setting is called. Its words are a prayer sung by Mary when she's told she's pregnant and will bear a child who will bring peace to the earth. I listened and listened and listened. I listened so long that I missed my morning staff meeting. It wasn't my finest moment. But I just sat there and kept hitting play again and again. I don't know why exactly. It was as if I needed to hear the age-old question and the age-old promises in a voice that just wasn't my own. It was as if I needed the reminder that for generations upon generations, in the face of uncertainty, in the face of trying times, God has heard the experiences of her people, has leaned in, has told them, reminded them that something new is on the horizon, that the world is about to turn. I sat there thinking about how this is the age-old song. It is the song of Abraham and Sarah, unable to parent, becoming parents of a great nation. It is the song of Jacob having done the unforgivable, being forgiven. It is the song of Moses and a people trapped in slavery being liberated through a parted sea. It is the song of Aaron and a people wandering in the wilderness, arriving in a place where they found love, belonging, safety, and dignity. It is the song of Naomi in the midst of her grief and loss, making a family of choice. It is the song of Israel struggling to know how to be true community, being led by David and Solomon. It is a song of all of those driven from their homes into exile, finally being allowed to come home. It's a story, the song of a world about to turn. It is a song from Isaiah, as we read today. He stands before a worn out and weary crowd of exiles who have just returned home. All isn't exactly peachy keen in the land. It's all pretty volatile and unpredictable, and it turns out that being home isn't easy. It's hard. In poetic prose, Isaiah tells them, God is a God who is always about to do a new thing. Just you wait. Keep watch. The God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, and Aaron, indeed the God of Israel, is yet at work, like a potter turning clay at the wheel, creating something new. It is the song of all the prophets who spoke of God's intention for the world, but time when the world might be made right, a time when swords could be beaten into plowshares, the ground tilled, feasts served for neighbors and strangers alike, and none would go hungry. It is the song that spans generations, I thought, as I sat there in the pines that September day and listened to the song and remembered all of these age-old stories of God and her people. I, that day, let the song question be my question. Could the world be about to turn? And I let the ancient stories of our faith tradition remind me of the answer that I didn't yet claim. The answer offered by the ancient stories that, of course, the world is about to turn. For in the stories of generation upon generation, in the face of uncertainty and in the face of trying times, God heard the experiences of her people, leaned in, told them, reminded them, and promised them that something new and good and beautiful is on the horizon. And she invited them to be ready. But is it still true? I wondered that day as I remembered my own stories, my own life, my own family, my own community, and all the times that adversity had struck, and all the times I thought nothing would ever change, or it felt like everything was changing for the worse. And in each of them, too, I could see it, that even in the worst of it, there was always a glimmer, that God indeed was always turning the world towards something new. I left the woods that day with a profound sense of hope and with curiosity about what it was God was up to next. It felt as though the whole of my being had pivoted from despair towards hope. Now, let's be clear, I didn't leave with some sort of personality transformation and suddenly become an optimist. No, ma'am. But there had been a turn, a pivoting towards hope. I had settled, and I had the settled sense that all the chaos of all that is right now is only for a time, and that out of it will come something new, something beyond our wildest imaginations. And yet, even though it is beyond our wildest imaginations, it will involve ordinary people who are simply willing and able to do the extraordinary things together. Because that's also just how God always does anything new. Right? She inspires, nudges, whispers, shouts, and works alongside her people to create it. Don't believe me? Well, wait until you hear the Christmas story in a few short weeks. Not to spoil the surprise, but in that story, God opts to join up with a teenage mom and an adoptive dad who are both too poor for last names to birth a new way of life that calls for peace and love of neighbors. And in the midst of a country that's divided and at war with itself because they're ruled by an insecure human who wants people to believe he's God and doesn't seem to care if people are suffering. But here I am, jumping ahead. We all probably need a bit more time to get ready for that bizarre story. Which is why for now, it is Advent. It's a season for sitting under the pine trees. Literally, maybe. Figuratively, mostly. Advent is a season to wonder if you believe it's true. Could the world really be about to turn? And Advent is a season to grow familiar again with the ancient stories and the holy promises of God that offer us the truth that this isn't just some passing fad. And Advent is a season to do whatever it is you must do to create room and space to sense hope again. To let yourself be delighted that you are about to see God do something new. And Advent is a season to grow excited about the role you're called to play in God's unfolding story. For friends, indeed, something new and good and beyond all expectation is on the horizon. The world is about to turn, and you are being invited to be a part of it. May we all grow ready.